Obviously, the reason I wait until Fridays to do these start-sit matchups for defenses is because we get injury updates. But I gotta say this, having the bye-mageddon in this week actually makes it really hard for defenses too, because a lot of defenses that don't have business in the top 12 are being pushed up because a lot of teams that are good are on bye this week. But we're going through every single matchup today to find the start and sit defenses for week 8. And I'm one of the only fantasy YouTubers who covers defense multiple times a week. So make sure to go down there, drop a like on the video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. Now getting into our first matchup, we finally don't have to watch a freaking overseas game this weekend. I am so happy. Miami Dolphins and Atlanta Falcons starts at noon this week. I think the Falcons are a good play this week. Listen, I think the Dolphins offense is actually going to score more points this week. Like, if you look at what happened last week, I said this heading into the week. The Dolphins are one of the worst teams in the NFL, possibly the worst, whenever there's any sort of inclement weather. They are not a weathered football team. They're good in hot weather at home, and they're good in domes. Well, frankly, this one's a dome game, so they should be able to put up points. But it also doesn't take away from the fact that Tua is turning the ball over like crazy right now. They're also circling the drain as a team, so I don't think that they're going to be able to put up more than 25 points. And even if they do, Tua's going to throw at least 2 picks in this game, and the Falcons will come up with some stops and turnovers to make them a worthwhile play this week. But I will say this, ill-advised play, but I think the Dolphins are playable. Again, bye-mageddon screws up a lot of things. So if you're in deeper leagues, if you're in like 16-man leagues, or you don't trust a different defense that's in my top 12, very ill-advised to do this, but I think there's an opportunity here. The Falcons offense, we can't trust them. Like, this offense is so not trustworthy, and I think that from a week-to-week basis, we don't know what we're going to get out of them yet. They're a very inconsistent team, but I will just definitely stay away from them because the Dolphins are a disaster right now. You don't want to trust a defense that's already not good, but I will say this, they lost to the Panthers and didn't put up a point just about a month ago, and I have not forgotten about that, so that's why the Dolphins are playable. The Chicago Bears at the Baltimore Ravens is our next matchup, and stay away from this one. Look at the over-under. It indicates that Lamar is going to play, and of course he is going to play. He's being listed as questionable after a full participation in practice on Friday. The guy is going to play football this week, and for that reason, I think the Ravens get back to winning games, but either way, I'm not playing the Bears defense in a matchup on the road versus the Ravens coming off a bye week, getting a little healthier, and of course with Lamar Jackson. But I'm also not playing the Ravens defense either. The Bears offense, I've been saying over the weeks, they leave some stuff out there, and there are opportunities when Caleb is turning the ball over, but I don't trust the Ravens defense at all. Like, I will not talk about the Ravens defense as a playable option until I see otherwise to prove me wrong. I'm staying away from both defenses in this one. The New York Jets at the Cincinnati Bengals is our next matchup, and the Bengals defense, it's a really gross play, but they are very playable this week. I mean, the Jets offense already stinks, right? Like, if you have Garrett Wilson, they're already not going to put up more than 17 points on you. But Tyrod Taylor, the presumed starter, is still dealing with injury, listed as questionable. Garrett Wilson, going to miss the game. Mason Taylor, now questionable as well. So their top target may literally be Josh Reynolds in this game and nobody else. With a questionable Breece Hall who probably goes, it's a disaster. Full-fledged disaster. I know the Bengals can be viewed as a disaster as well. They're not close to the Jets. That is a disaster zone. And I would play every defense that plays them at this point. The Bengals are a terrible defense, but if they get Trey Hendrickson back, they could be good, and I do think that they will get him back based on indications, so I do think that this one is a solid play. And I'll say this, again, ill-advised to do this too. They're even more ill-advised than playing the Dolphins defense, for example. I think you can play the Jets, again, if you're in a deep league or you don't trust other options, but very, very ill-advised. They're like at the bottom of flexible or startable options for defenses for me this week. I'm not going to play them, but I could, of course, see a world where you could because the Bengals offensive line, not very good, and I still don't trust them to put up more than 25 points on a per-game basis, even with Joe Flacco. So, playable, ill-advised, though. The Buffalo Bills at the Carolina Panthers is our next matchup. And the Bills defense, by default, was in my top 12 this week. Now, there's been changes. I ended up moving up the Chiefs defense, pushing down the Bills to the bottom of the top 12. And I don't really want to play them. Like, this is just a matchup thing. They're playing Andy Dalton, who I think actually could be better for the offense than Bryce Young, but there's no question he doesn't have the mobility of Bryce. So I think if the Bills, they're getting some guys back after the bye week. I do think if they can apply some pressure to Andy Dalton, it could shift the game. So the Bills coming off the bye week, I'm going to bank on them figuring a couple things out, but they're not my favorite play of the week. I would definitely play them as a top 12 defense. If I'm in a 12-man league, I'm picking them up if they're the only defense out there, and I'll play them. But I don't feel super confident because they haven't been good. And the Panthers defense against the Bills, as bad as the Bills have been the past 2 weeks, like, there's just no way you could convince me to play the Panthers defense versus the Bills off of a bye week. I'm just not doing that. I do not advise you to do that either. And I will say this, I think the Bills are probably on the waiver wire this week. Them, the Bengals, I think those guys are still out there on waivers for a lot of teams. And if you have not decided on your defense this week, make sure to pick them up by using our automatic waiver wire tool, because what always happens is after the priority waiver ads run, then everybody gets up at 3 in the morning in competitive leagues and tries to get the remaining free agents for free. Our process on fsroundup.com has automated that for you so you could get those guys, beat those 3 a.m. guys to the waiver wire, and sleep through the night. And you can wake up to an angry text from your buddy who says, "How did you beat me at 3 in the morning?" Well, that's because you're using FS Roundup and they're not. So that means you're going to win your league and they won't, because this is a league-winning tool that we just lowered the price from $8.88 a month to $6 a month to use. You can also get access to my top 250 rankings on a weekly basis, the comparison feature, the league sync-up feature, lots of great features to help you win your league, and it is at a low price of $6 per month.
This is Ted. Look at him. Ted desperately needs to pick up a new running back, or his fantasy team is toast. For the 3rd year in a row. And losing his season again means one thing.
Oh, no.
Don't be Ted. Use Fantasy Football Roundup to automate your waiver pickups and rest easy this season. Huh. Look at him.
Now, our next matchup is the San Francisco 49ers at the Houston Texans. I gotta tell you, man, looking at this line in Vegas, like, what do they know? I mean, now my senses are tingling because of this whole NBA thing. I don't know what they know, but it doesn't seem like the Texans should be favored in this one. That being said, I have said all week they're both playable defenses, and they're both very good starts, I think. The 49ers, yes, it's true. They're throwing guys like you and me out there to play defense for them. But this is the benefit of coaching number one. With Robert Saleh as that defensive coordinator, they threw guys like you and me out there last week against the Falcons, and they destroyed them. And they did really well in fantasy. The number two thing is the Texans already were at a disadvantage. If both teams were fully healthy, for instance, right, the 49ers would have an unbelievable edge against the Texans. But then you take away some pieces from the Texans, it's even Steven to me, and they're still at a disadvantage. So I would play the 49ers defense before I play the Texans defense, who I like better because they're healthier, but they're not all healthy either. They are losing guys because their defense is out there all the time because their offense can't sustain drives. But that being said, again, you're going up against another offense that's totally depleted of options. So I think they're both good plays. They both have good defensive cultures over there, and I think it will be a low-scoring game to where both teams may end up getting a bunch of sacks or some interceptions/turnovers in general. They're both good plays. The Cleveland Browns at the New England Patriots. Patriots defense, you play them very obviously. They're going to crush the Browns in this one. It's at home. They're going to stop the run, which is all you need to do against the Browns, and make Dylan Gabriel throw 40 times a game because he can't. So it's going to be Patriots all the way. Browns are in less ill-advised play than the Jets and a team like the Dolphins. I would play the Browns over those two teams. Again, if you're in deeper leagues, this one might come into play, and with bye weeks all of a sudden, it makes defenses like this have to be in playable territory because the Browns defense is good. They are. I don't want to play them. I think the Patriots offense is very good, but they are still prone to some turnovers sometimes, and the Browns defense does have good personnel over there. So not a good play, but I would play them over the Jets. I would play them over the Miami Dolphins defense. The New York Giants at the Philadelphia Eagles is our next matchup. This is a weird one. Like I said last week, I had it pretty much nailed. Like with the Broncos game, I said that game could get very weird, and it did very fast. That was probably one of the craziest games of the year, and then the Giants lost that game. Like, that is such a disheartening loss. So what I said last week with the Giants coming into that game was they were working off of confidence, energy, and momentum. That's all been taken away. So I'm way less high on the Giants this week than I was last week. But I will say they know how to beat the Eagles because they already did it once. Now, that was different. That was in New York. It's in Philly this time, so there is a chance this could go awry. But I think they're playable because of the Philadelphia Eagles' offensive struggles and the fact it looks like, as of now, A.J. Brown probably will not play in this game. Philly is also a playable defense too. Like I said, the Giants are not operating on the same level of confidence and energy and momentum that they were last week. So I think the door has been open for them to go back to the Giants that they have been for the majority of the past several years, which is a garbage football team. And that is the reason I think the Eagles are playable. But I will say this, man, the Eagles have been bad in fantasy football. Very bad. They're not getting sacks. They're applying no pressure to the quarterback. So I'd still rather play the Giants defense over the Eagles defense because they're at least applying pressure to everybody's quarterbacks in the league. So very weird matchup again. The Giants are still in this place for me where I'm like, I'm not sure exactly how to handle them yet, but I do think that this is a very playable matchup for both defenses, but not ones that I would play over my top 12 defenses. So our next matchup is the Bucs at the Saints, and this one feels relatively obvious. I will say this, the Bucs defense is definitely a top 10 defense for me still this week. And I will say, I think a lot of people don't realize how the Bucs have been defensively in fantasy this year. They've actually been pretty good. 20 sacks on the year, 5 interceptions. They're the defense number 17. Like, they've actually made some plays necessary to do good in fantasy, and the Saints have been turning the ball over more. That was the one thing they could hang their hat on for like the majority of the first month of the season. They weren't turning the ball over. Now they're starting to turn it over more. And of course, they just have a limited ceiling as far as points scored goes. So the Bucs jump out to a 14-0 lead. They're chasing. Then they start tossing interceptions, and they're starting to get after Spencer Rattler, and they bring him down a couple times. Bucs are going to be a good play. I've got full confidence in this one, and I've got no confidence in the Saints. Tampa should be like a defense that you could play against Tampa. That should be one of the cases, but Saints defense is atrocious. They all look terrible right now. And the Bucs, even though they've got tons of injuries, they've still got Baker Mayfield, and that makes me not want to play the Saints defense at all. The Tennessee Titans at the Indianapolis Colts feels pretty obvious. Colts, you absolutely play them. They're my number one defense on the week still, and the Titans defense you stay far away from. The only thing I'll say, divisional matchups can get weird because these two teams know each other very well. But the Titans are, of course, circling the drain as a team. You don't want to get cute with this one. Play the Colts, don't play the Titans. They are still a top 11 defense that were moved down because of the Chiefs. But I still think, look at it this way, right? The Broncos just gave up 30-plus points to the Giants defense. However, they still were a playable defense last week because they get after your freaking quarterback, man. That's what they do. They cause turnovers, and they get after your quarterback. That's what separates the Broncos from other defenses in this league. Like them, the Seahawks, those types of defenses, they cause so much havoc in your backfield, and that causes turnovers all over the place. So even if they put up 25, 30-plus points on the Broncos defense this week, I'm going to play the Broncos because that's what they could do. They can make the game-changing and game-deciding mistakes happen for those other offenses, and that's what we need for fantasy upside at the defensive position. And I'm also going to stay away from the Cowboys defense because I stay away from them when they play anybody, basically. Then we have our Sunday night matchup, the Green Bay Packers at the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I've been saying all week. Low-key shootout in this one. I still think they're both playable, again, mostly because I think both defenses are good for fantasy. But it's just tough, man, because I think the Packers defense, I'd prefer to play them because the Packers offense is less mistake prone than the Steelers offense. Rodgers, if he gets in a hole, for example, in this game and they have to be in a shootout, he can throw some interceptions. He's done it several times this year. So I think the Packers could come up and get some turnovers. Also, that pass rush really turned up last week. And the Steelers' offensive line is not good. So if they get a couple sacks, maybe an interception off Rodgers, even if the Steelers, again, put up 30 points or something like that, which I think could happen, they will be a good defensive play. The Pittsburgh Steelers defense, on the other hand, not in good position. The Packers don't make mistakes. So I don't think the Steelers are going to be able to force as many mistakes as they have against other teams like the Browns, for example, or even the Patriots when they had that 5-turnover game. Well, the Patriots at that point had been shooting themselves in the foot. Packers aren't really doing that. So I do think it's a little tougher, but of course the Steelers, that's what their culture is built off of. You make mistakes, they capitalize on them, and that's how they've been a good fantasy defense over the years. So I'm going to have them as a playable defense this week. The Washington Commanders at the Kansas City Chiefs, our Monday night game, and of course Jaden Daniels was the piece that completely changed everything. So now he's been ruled out. So Kansas City is now a top 5 defense for me. If you have a premium subscription on FS Roundup, you can see exactly where the Chiefs are ranked for me this week. Everything changed. You can look at the line in Vegas. Everyone expects the Chiefs to obliterate the Commanders in this game, even with Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel back. The Chiefs are going to not let up many points on the Commanders, and they'll probably get a turnover or two out of the equation. And the Commanders, there's just no way you're playing them. I mean, the Chiefs' offense with Rashee Rice back last week looks pretty unstoppable, and they already looked really good. They were already putting up a bunch of points and figuring it out without Rashee Rice. So you add Rashee Rice back in the equation, I'm not going to be playing defenses that are playing the Chiefs anytime soon. So let me know what your situation looks like on defense in week 8. And if you want to see the full top 12 rankings for defenses this week, click on this video right here.